Rock and roll. Kia ora, Leanne, how are you?
Kia ora, Robett. I'm pretty good. Back at work, second week, so really getting into it now. Slow start to the year. First week back. Whew. Yeah, it's pretty good.
So I was trying to think about, I'm always, I love the intersection between like creativity and content and commerce and this kind of, I love this like ikigai in the middle of all this awesomeness. But when it comes to leadership from a perspective of where you now sit, how does the world of creativity and commerce look different in the year 2023 than when you first entered the media game a while ago? How does it how does it look?
Um,
Or
I just
maybe how
want
does it look from the top? You
no,
know.
it's such a great question. I have to just tell our listeners or your listeners that this is completely unprompted because that question is one of our biggest focus areas for 2023. So
Hey, I know that I didn't go to university, but I'm bloody good at what I do when I can just banter away and talk shit. Okay, great start, Robett.
yeah, that was pretty awesome actually. Um, so we like one of the trends that have been coming for a while is social commerce, and if you view any of your social channels, you'll know that that's a big area of your feeds right now. But the next area is actually creative commerce. So how do we get that right creatively? So the channels there, the audiences are there, the platforms there, but we haven't. And in a few places we probably have, but an area for us to move forward to as an advertising industry is how do we make the most of that moment now? So yeah, creative commerce is where it's going to be.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of the social commerce. The bit
Yeah.
where it feels there is tension with is there seems to be a disconnect between the thinking around tech as a tactic versus tech as a platform,
Yeah.
right? And it's an extremely fine filter when it's like big data this or AI that or digital marketing this or blah.
Yeah.
There's all these kind of like buzzwords which are tech, and then it's like yeah, tech is a tactic, but in a world now which is exactly to your point, Leanne, where it's just everything is social streaming, whatever. Tech is actually now that platform for that commerce. So it's I'm seeing a lot of naivety dismissing a lot of the not the clickbaity type stuff, but the opportunities there. But realistically, the platform of technology with how people are consuming, I actually I'm with you on that. There hasn't been it doesn't feel there's been a strong enough execution for a fully scalable business model yet for that type of thing, because I guess it's like you're racing, right? The tech keeps changing, the algorithms keep changing, the eyeballs keep
Yeah.
shifting, and you're like trying like, oh, how do we package this up? Because essentially you're the conduit for others that want to spend and buy and sell. So maybe I'll segue to that. How are you navigating priorities within a team, knowing that you're chasing the market, which is always leading, trying new and testing, and then you're trying to, I guess, put products and services to then fit that new world, I guess we're going into. Like, how are you prioritizing energy or time to try and address those challenges?
Um, we were actually having this conversation yesterday as a team, talking about how do we focus this area of business now? Is it going to be revolution or evolution for us? And into the tech space and digital space and social space, that was definitely a revolution of how people consume media, but also how media agencies and creative agencies adapt to service those audiences that are there. So that was a big step change for us. But now it is moving more into an evolution space. So the technology is there, and it is more going to be how we adapt that technology to find audiences, to serve audiences, and more importantly, to measure outcomes for that. So we're not in that revolution space anymore. We're definitely in an evolution space. And for us to stay ahead of that means great talent, to be honest. So making sure that we are employing a department or a team of people that understand those platforms better than I do, than some of my team do, so they can understand how to take advantage of those services for our clients. Measurement in that space is quite an important focus, because it's great to be able to do things. But more importantly for clients, and especially moving into what's going to be a challenging year, is they need to be accountable for every dollar they spend. So when we're moving into new areas or new technology or new platforms, or the way we use new platforms, it's how do we measure the success of that? And I think that's an area that clients and teams need a lot more support in, because just because you can measure it doesn't always mean you should. And
Yeah, it's like driving your car with your feet. Just because you could doesn't make it a good idea.
that's an interesting thought now, Robett. I've never tried.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should. No, it was like a Chris Rock joke from ages ago. But to that point, there's something around the malleability of the intellect of the people that are within these organizations, where they have to have that open-mindedness to be consuming, and this is where I find like handbrakes in the creative landscape is so intriguing to me, because creatives as a whole, if you look at, like, you know, if you were selling, you know, bread, or selling gas, whatever the thing may be, the world of creativity is ideas and creativity. But the hardest thing for people outside of, you know, this creative landscape is opening their mind up, being willing to see new ideas, and then having the bravery to try these new things moving forward. But then to have those challenges within creative world makes it even probably harder, because it's like, wait, we're already the minority anyway because we're creative. Like, are you finding the challenge of people, is there an age gap that you think is more malleable, or just more open? Is it a youth thing? Is it a headspace thing? Like, what's the mindset that's actually making it, you know?
Oh, that's a great question. I've never thought about it as an age. I think it's a mindset piece. And in advertising and media industries, I feel we're privileged and lucky, actually, because we generally work with passionate people and curious people. And you have to have that mindset to be in this industry. You have to be curious. You have to be read. You have to be read. That's an excellent start to our chat. You have to read. You have to listen. We're a really close industry of colleagues, so we're always open to debating and discussing things with people outside of our own workplace, because we actually generally love what we do. And to love what you do, you're just curious about great work, and we celebrate good work. So
that's
and we don't care where it comes from. You know, if someone's delivered a great campaign, you just say awesome work. Like, it'll make the industry better.
So to that, right? Competition within creativity, competition in general. I heard this word a while ago, which I love, called co-opetition. Like, yeah, we're in the same lane, but like, you're my competitor, but the harder you go, the better I want to go. And it's that kind of that, you know, as a, you know, I used to do a bunch of professional sports stuff in a previous life, that headspace of like, you're my buddy and I'm pumped when you win, but because you've done better, stuff you, I want to do better, but I'm stoked for you, but stuff you, you know, but I think like that raises it, because if it just becomes plateaued. But to that point though, from the hundreds and thousands of people that I've seen in businesses and whatever else as well, the majority of humans don't actually want to celebrate others. And the majority of the time, either that's come from, you know, their own either insecurities or whatever, that's that challenging, whatever. How have you negotiated a culture or a mindset that's actually helped set the tone that celebrating these wins actually matters? And it's not just some clickbait bullshit, tick the box stuff where it's like, yay, Bob's doing good, and everyone's like, but we hate Bob, but stuff you, we're just doing what we have to do. How do you have that genuine buy-in for celebrating others that you've been able to intertwine through culture as you've built the business?
I think it's a confidence and belief in the direction you've set. So once you're clear on your vision and where you're going to go with the business, that's where you're going. So you communicate that to all parts of the business, and everybody is on the same page, and we're all delivering to that vision. I think we have to be conscious of what competition are doing, because I love that word, which I've now forgotten, but say it again, Robett.
Co-opetition. Like we're competing.
You
collaborating.
heard it here first, co-opetition. I think if you're clear on your vision and you've set a goal and you you're moving forward as a business to deliver that, then you want to look outside, you want to see what other people are doing, but you don't want it to distract where you're heading and what you're doing. You see it a lot in some of the retail space, and I hope it's okay to call out that category. But they they shift and move with where the competition is, and the ones that just keep steady and keep delivering to a vision and a brand proposition that they've set themselves, they're the ones that are going to succeed because consumers understand what they are talking about and what they mean. Their team understand where they're all heading. You still want to look over your shoulder or ahead of you and go, "Nice one, guys. That was great work." And even better, if we can say, "We wish we had thought of it first," because next time
Mm.
you better be the ones that think of it first. But
So
I'm
yeah, that
appreciative of that view, and I have a confidence and belief that where we're heading is the best that we can do.
it's a great point, Leon, around the that communication with the team, right? It's like, do you want to be chasing
Yeah.
this what others are doing or on your own lane? I'm a hip hop kid. Everything usually comes back to hip hop or sports for me. But there was an interview that Jay-Z did with the New York Times a few years ago, and he said a line which I absolutely loved. They were talking about relevance within the industry of what you were going to do next, and he said, he's like, oh, it's super simple. Would you rather be a trend or Ralph Lauren? He's like, do you want to be chasing the thing that's just like that you're in that hot space right now, that white little thing that everyone's going to, or do you want to be Ralph Lauren, like be lasting like generational forever? Do you want to go? He's like, so as everyone else is playing, it's like then it just is chess not checkers. You're just playing different games with it. So to that
Yeah.
point though, for people to buy into the Ralph Lauren or to the long game sort of chess play, as a leader of these of business, how do you clearly, succinctly communicate this vision from employee one to 100, and so like how do you approach communication of this vision to align team across the business?
Repetition.
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
and just repetition. You clear on what you want to say, and that has to drive everything we do as a business. So um, at a senior level, it's a lot more in the detail, the nuts and the bolts, the finances, and then to my management team, it's probably slightly less in the detail, but you always apply what the vision means to your teams and giving them really clear ideas around how they can deliver that back to clients and how we're going to give them tools, development, training to be able to help us achieve that vision. And then to our agency, it's about how we inspire and motivate them around this vision. So I would slightly change my tech depending on which of the audiences are in our teams, but I will be consistent and repetitious around what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it, and how I'm going to support each of each member of our agency to deliver that. And I think that's probably a difference between in preparing for our chat today, just what leadership used to be in the past versus what
Mm.
leadership's going to be now or into the future. I think vision and purpose has always been true for a leader, but our values and actually communication to everybody in the agency is probably something that's slightly different, and not being
Mm.
told, but taking people on a journey and making them want to feel um, part of what we're doing and motivated and inspired by where we're going.
So if I love this. It's very simple to say, but it's hard to execute because the majority of businesses don't have that aligned vision between the C-suite and the streets and employee one to employee 1,000. I
Hmm.
went to, when I was at this little awesome uh, summit thing here in the States. One of the people that spoke, who's fully off the grid, it's one of Steve Jobs' inner circle from 30 years that literally work with him.
Oh
And
yeah,
he was at the table when there was six of them that invented the iPod, right? The iPod, and they're like, okay, we're going to do this thing, blah, blah. And they succinctly got it down to two words, which was one sentence was 1,000 songs in
yeah,
your pocket. 1,000 songs in your pocket, right? And then after they went outside, they said to all the different crew, they said, okay, we're creating this thing. It's gonna have 1,000 songs in your pocket. Anything that doesn't fit this thing, piss off. We don't want to talk to you. Anything that comes through, piss off. We don't want to talk to you. And the way I thought about it, and he said that basically, like from the receptionist to the CEO. I mean, from employee 1 to 1,000, everyone knew the exact thing. And the way my brain looked at it was, I said, it was like the Southern Cross of comms, where employee from the receptionist to the CEO from south to north all know the same thing, 1,000 songs in your pocket, and employee 1 to employee 1,000, one thing, right? And then so what was great about that, it was such a unifying and clear thing where everyone in the entire organization knew, regardless where it was, if it doesn't, and even they were saying these kind of funny stories, how, these people were trying to pitch the receptionist, we want to go this, and they're like, can it fit 1,000 songs? They're like, no, like, piss off, next. It's like, is this big? It's like, and there's these funny stories of like the receptionist and stuff just gassing all these deals. But it's to that point. So segue into the question was, if you think of the vision of the business right now with where you're taking it, what would it be in a tweet?
Oh, Robett, that's a hideous question. I actually haven't.
Or a long tweet, like maybe a paragraph.
No, I love that, because I'm going to divert for 1 second, only because when you were telling that story, and everyone's heard this one, but I was talking about sort of more leadership today versus like years ago, but the same as the Apple story was the janitor at NASA, and
go on. I haven't heard it.
Okay.
No, go, hit me. I'm into it. I'm subscribed.
All right, so I'm gonna, if I get the story slightly wrong, excuse me. So they were interviewing, and one of the janitors at NASA was like, "Hey, what do you do?" And his response was, I'm putting a man on the moon. So yeah, that was their single vision. And from everybody in the business, that's what they were striving to do. So no, I don't know if I have a tweet just yet. We are at the moment preparing for a mini conference in Feb with our agency to deliver our vision. And so I had it all prepared. And one of my colleagues yesterday, while we were talking about how we were going to deliver this to the agency, said, that's boring and not very inspirational. So I was like, oh shit, okay, awesome. So I've got some wordsmithing to do. So can you ask me this question in like 2 months, and I'm going to have something fabulous like putting 1,000 songs in your pocket or a man on the moon?
Yeah, of course. No, I just have a small brain, and I like things simple, but at the same time I like to go down these rabbit holes.
That's what I work on for the next couple of weeks. Is what's my tweet? Yeah, I've delivered my long-term vision, but apparently it's not very. It's not the one-liner we need.
I have many friends who have dealt with lots of these complex things, and I always just like looking at the entire thing, going, if you look at that, the Southern Cross of comms, or I need to brand that thing, whatever it is, from the receptionist to the CEO, whatever. Yeah. It's how, because if the people that engage with it are confused, they dismiss it as wrong, even though it might be right. But if they don't see it, then they're like, stuff it. I've had some chats with the scientists or this and that, and I'm just like you're speaking Spanish to me, dude. I'm like, geez. But when they dumb it down, it's not that they go into it, but it's always tricky. So maybe I want to segue into a bit of this. One thing that I get very passionate, stoked, proud, whatever on, is the changing face of leadership in Aotearoa over the last 10 years, right? Now, there's always these waves that seem to come where, the first wave, if I look, when I was 20, was a entrepreneur's kind of scene. It was in high school, it was basically, if you're a self-starter or entrepreneur type thing, you're kind of a loser. And then lucky for tech came along, and some people started wearing hoodies and making billions of dollars, and all of a sudden tech was cool and everyone wants to wear flipping hoodies. But the wave shifted of energy of what it meant to be entrepreneurial, right? So there was a wave, and then we had a wave come through of male versus female in the workplace, and this, and now you've got gender equality, and we're having these waves, and one thing that I get very passionate, especially when it gets into culture, is one thing that, and you could probably say the same for multiple different bits, but I'm interested in your take on it, is it absolutely utterly pisses me off when people treat these things like campaigns, not consistency. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. It's Te Reo Māori Week, Te Reo Māori Language Week, and all of a sudden you've got, CEOs who never speak Te Reo, all of a sudden like, oh, kia ora all, morena, blah, blah, just like tick in the box shit. And you can tell it's like not genuine at all. There's no actual like depth to it. It's just they're doing the thing. And then it's going to be Gay Pride Month, and then it's going to be so-and-so. How do you, and I mean, the fact that it exists is great, but as a female that's now in a leadership position through it, and the journey from I know, which when you first started in the game was not the way it looks flipping now, how have you felt about the changing landscape visually of what leadership looks like, and your journey within that over the years to get to this point now?
Yeah, I'm 100% aligned with what you've actually just said about it being token. I think a couple of years ago, you could have probably got away with it being token, but today, people are calling you out on it. So you can't just say it anymore. If you're not doing it or having an active participation in delivering that through your business or into your industry, you're going to get called out on it. And when you do, not if you do, I think when you do, you're left in a pretty shitty place. So no, I think if you're talking that language now, or I mean, when I'm talking about diversity of leadership or the way that you want your business to be interpreted, you better be clear on how you're delivering that into the business and what are you doing to educate yourself and actually believe in what you're saying. I know diversity is probably one of my passion points as a leader. I think there is definitely gender diversity, but I think the changing face of leadership around the world can only deliver better diversity of thought, better for our teams, and actually how we take our product or services out into the world. So gender diversity, sexual preference, neurodiversity, cultural diversity, age. It doesn't, those diverse or diversities have to be better represented, not just at a leadership level, but actually through our business. And that comes with with education and understanding around how people think, how people want to be addressed, how people want to be portrayed, how people can actually bring their authentic self into the workplace. And once we can embrace that, we're going to get amazing work from a team of people, because challenge and discussion, diverse thought, that can only lead to good work. So yeah, we're on a journey. We still have such a long way to go, I think, in getting there.
So what percentage of, I agree with all that, Leon, it's 100% agree.
Yeah.
But looking at the landscape right now, from 10 years ago to now, what percentage 10 years ago didn't have the eyes open to embrace the awesomeness that actually existed around them to enable those with their own things rolling to now? How good has it got, and how much further do you feel we have to go? Like, if this was a number, was it 90% sucked and 10% were awesome, and now it's like 70-30? Like, what do you like the tone of what you've felt or seen from other leaders or businesses that have embraced that, or genuinely embraced it, not tokenized it, genuinely embraced?
Again, I can only talk about our industry because I think that's where I get the most exposure, just internally. So advertising and media and marketing, I think we're privileged in that we're always sit in what's my word for this? We're always more open to these discussions, and we're always just slightly ahead, I think, of the curve versus other industries. I would say percentage of leaders in our industry today open about this and really wanting to embrace the change, I would go to about 60-70%.
Yeah.
Pretty high.
But way more in our industry in terms of the media advertising creative than like law firms or flipping whatever, right?
Oh my God, 100%. And for us as well, the difference is we're talking about it. It's an agenda on the table in our board meetings now, but we're still a way off from actually getting that into agencies and into the industry. So getting diversity of thought and cultures and people into our industry is still something we're working on. So the intentions are there, but that journey is still an ongoing one, and it's not a quick fix for us.
I totally get it. A friend of mine, Tara, is a creative director at Google. She helped set up the Rare, which was for the creative within the creative industry of like exceptional talent and stuff. And so I got to go and be one of the speakers at their first thing they did over in Sydney. And I got up there and I kind of said, similar to before, I was like, creatives are usually seen as the outcasts and the crazy ones anyway. So to have a platform that exists to celebrate the diversity that exists within the creative industry, you're like the 1% of the 1%. It's like, holy, it's getting so tricky. But no, I agree. And it's that there was a friend of mine, Michelle Dickinson, we're at CES in Vegas, the big electronics trade show. It's like 180,000 people in the world come see all the new tech stuff. It was amazing. And we're at dinner. And we were having a chat with me, Michelle, and Joe and stuff. And then Michelle goes, she's like, "Oh, look around, Robett. What do you see?" And I'm like looking around, I'm like, "God, it's in Vegas. This is awesome. Like, let's get at it." And she's like, outside the promo girls, what percentage are female? And I was like, holy, okay. And I was like, I looked around, I was like, 95% men. She goes, "I got nothing wrong with men coming here. My issue is, if these are the leaders and the people that are making the decisions for the future tech products and services, which 100% of the world will be using, which is 50% female, do you see an imbalance?" And I was like, I'd never thought. I was like, you're right. I was like, because then you got 95% dudes trying to build stuff for things that they don't understand, aren't listening to, aren't engaged with, whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. And she was like, that's why this ship is important, because in your children, and then now I've got two daughters, 3 and 5, and I'm like, holy, you're flipping right, jingle bells. But you gotta have a different I've learned you got to have a different lens when you see things, because what you see is never what it is. There's always a story behind the story. Like I just saw, we're at Vegas. She saw, this is a future danger for females, but that are going to have products and services which have been 95% designed by men, not female. I was like, oh, geez, So, but that having that awareness is such a superpower, and obviously to be in the situation that you're in now, you would have seen through it. I wanted to ask about. With MBM, you were the record, I think, was like the highest growth of any media agency in New Zealand, right? So that's mega. When you've obviously know what you're doing when it comes to getting the team aligned for it, but specifically around growth in terms of revenue, we're about to enter a spot that's going to be potentially a bit tougher in terms of like resource allocation or spend or money or income, whatever. The fact that you've been able to build and grow to one of the highest growth of any media agency in New Zealand, when you think about growth at a macro for the business, regardless whether it's a bakery or a small business, whatever, how did you kind of approach either the strategy or the way you sort of did it that led to those results? Because I'm sure the way you thought about it has obviously worked, but there might be some insights that might be able to help some of the listeners.
So a bit of that growth was new business. We working with Waka Kotahi and My Food Bag, which is pretty awesome. For us, I think being clear on two things really is how we grow revenue with existing services. So when we started talking at the beginning of the chat was, how do we stay slightly, or not slightly, we got to have a long enough view around what we're building for in the future, and the technology that we have to bring on, but also the talent we have to bring on. So we invest in what that looks like a year, 2 years, 3 years ahead, so that that team can embed themselves in the agency and start to build products that are going to be right for our clients into the future. But we're seeing a lot of those services now that clients need. So marketing maturity, so working with clients on what that looks like, and so that we can partner with them around how we introduce technology into their stack. One moment. Introduce technology and marketing and advertising technology into their stack, and how they use that technology for their business and marketing outcomes. So those are products that we've looked for into the future that we've seen realization of last year or the last 3 years to service our clients, and then clients we want to work with. So as MBM, we're a real challenger in the industry. We have a large base of New Zealand-based clients, so we understand New Zealand business, but we also understand challenger businesses. So that's our sweet spot. How do we work with clients that don't have the massive spends of some of the number ones in their category, but how can we think differently about what their marketing and media and advertising plans look like, and then how can we show to clients that how they invest their marketing dollars is going to return an investment for them to deliver to their boards and their key stakeholders. So I think it's just more a clarity on what our client fit is for MBM, who works well with us, who are we suited for, and then it's that suite of tools that are going to help our clients grow. And we prepare for that a year, 3 years in advance.
See, that's the bit that I was going to come back to. I'd written down here, long game planned, where it's you knew where the puck was going. That reminds me of, there was once again back to sport. There was that Richie McCaw documentary which I really enjoyed, actually. Like, I don't follow rugby, but him as a leader, I was really I loved seeing the mindset of what was happening with how it was doing. But there was a part of the thing he talked about. He said, I was never the fastest. I just knew where the ball was going to go, so I didn't run to the ball. I ran to where it was going to go. And there's that other thing about, like, hockey, like they went to, like Gretzky would talk about, he'd go to where the puck was going, you know. So he would see where the market or the energy was. And, you know, within the world of within media, you know, it was pretty clear after, you know, dial-up popped through and we went to broadband that video was going to exist, that then these communities were going to happen on top, and then eventually advertising would come on top, and then there'd be a shift between big $1 million TVCs to digital. Like, you could see it, right? And it's that thing of, so what did, maybe to get into the weeds a little bit, what did you see a year or 2 or 3 before that you built towards? What did that puck look like of what you knew where it was going to go, specifically that you thought was happening within the media landscape that would prove for you to be historically correct to help with the growth? What did you see that others didn't?
So firstly, I can't really take credit for 3 years ago because I've only been at...
yeah, true. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm going to give that credit to someone else. But so I've been with the business a year now, but what I've seen moving into 2022, so what was the year that we've in the last 3 years seen our biggest growth, is MBM has always had a focus on where digital and technology is going to go. So that MBM has invested in what that could look like for our clients. So some of these things are table stakes now, but they weren't a couple of years ago, and MBM had already invested there. So things like dynamic creative, dashboarding, social, and that might seem like an obvious thing to say. It's not just placement of social, it's like a delivery of a social team. Social creative, we've already started to play in that space. We have a division that has been part of the business since, no, I'm not going to say this because I'm going to get it wrong, but Breakout Room is our creative content agency, and they're a division of MBM, and they've played majorly in short form content, which is exactly what we're talking about now, moving into creative commerce. So we have a team of people that already have started playing in that space. And there's definitely some fine tuning we need to do in that area, which is our focus for this year. But we've already got some experience around that from the last couple of years. So those are just a couple of examples. Creative, dynamic creative, dashboarding, our social team, our content team. We have a data and technology team, so they've delivered a project around econometric modeling, and it's not like the all singing, all dancing econometric that can cost a client a small fortune. We do it on a smaller scale. But again, I think I've said this a few times, being able to deliver to clients what's working for them and showing them evidence of return on investment is massively important. So again, we've invested in a team of people that are developing services and products to be able to deliver that for clients. Yeah.
No, I get it. In case anyone is just tuning in, I'm with Leanne Morris, the CEO of MBM, a weapon in the flippin' advertising and media landscape. So stoked to have you in the mix on Today FM. All right, back into it. So that's what you've seen. Looking at the landscape now, in terms of marketing and advertising from 23 to 25, what's the thing that you look at and you go, everyone's sleeping on this and it's got the most disproportional upside, and I am gobsmacked that more people aren't taking it seriously with the true implications of what it can do for business to make it better? Is there something that you've seen? And the answer can't be Chat GPT.
Damn it! I think, most agencies have really got a kind of an eye on AI and what it's going to deliver. I think ChatGPT.
Yeah, let's go there for it. Go for it. You have a little vent on AI or whatever. I'm into it.
But most agencies will already have a view on or an eye on AI and what it's going to deliver for services moving forward. ChatGPT was just honestly, how easy is it to use on a plate, and you can immediately see the impact it's going to have. I think it's probably not something. It's not something that people are sleeping on. I actually think what it is you have to have, I believe, a view on what's happening long term and into the industry, but not get so caught up in innovation and technology and the future that you are not grounded in what works right now. And I see a shift coming back to that more and more. But we, for a time, were all about digital products, digital landscape, innovation, technology. We need to be there. That's definitely the future, but it doesn't mean that everything else gets left behind. So I think for me, it's definitely that, but I have to keep reminding myself that some of the fundamentals don't change. Human behavior, we're mammals from like millions of years old. The way our brains are wired is going to be the same for a lot longer. So I think it's more about holding true some of the things that we've learned from the past and making sure that the way that we view the future is a balance of what we know to be true now, how people behave, and then also having a thought around how that's going to change into the future. But I try and keep a foot in both camps, actually. So tried and tested measures, human behavior, and then technologies and digital evolutions, and where that can take us.
It's quite when you get into a lot of the thinking around, the not prehistoric, but just the fact that we are humans, we are the species, we roll a certain way, our heads, we are wired. There's so much to that. I don't know if that's psychology or whatever, I failed high school, but I love the fact that we're going to find we always find a balance, right? And I keep coming back to, and I use this example where when Snapchat first came out, it was like closed off one-to-one messaging, probably sending dick pics or whatever, fine, park that for a second. But then Facebook came out and it went the other way and it said, hey, let's do full open to everyone and to all. And so two totally different business models, one totally private one-to-one, one totally open to scale out to all. And over time, it sort of found its way back into the middle. So now you've got, say, within even an Instagram, you've got then the close friends, and there's you get these pieces of bit. So anything that goes extremely one side always balances off in the middle. And one thing that I have been organically seeing the rise of, and I don't know if people have fully clicked the way I'm kind of seeing it, is the more the world goes tech and crazy and whatever, the more there is growth in health and wellness retreats and
Completely
meditation
true.
and headspace thing. And I don't think people realize that it's happening out of the internal thing of knowing that they're getting consumed with tech. And there's this
Yeah.
something in the back of their head going, you got to balance this shit out. You got to tone it out. And it's like, cool, I need to escape. I need to get away. And so I've had this idea for a while, and I've talked about it, and I'm surprised no one's actually stolen it. It's a bar. It's a bar called
Now's your chance,
Analog.
people. Now's your chance.
Now's your chance. Milk, steal the IP. But everything's so digital. Imagine going into a spot that is a bar and it's called Analog. No phones allowed, and there's no social media, no nothing, and it's just a handset on there. And when you're in, anyone, if any phone gets seen anywhere, instantly they got to buy the whole bar around. And it's just like, how do we take it away where it becomes that human interaction? Because what I've noticed more and more socially over the last 10 years is, I'll go out to dinner, I'll go out to eat,
Yeah.
and I will look and I will see, and I'm almost like 20 to 30% of every table at some point, someone's on the phone. It's going to that space of, it's distraction. It's in, you jump in an elevator, instead of someone saying hi, everyone just goes to it. And I think what's going to happen is over time, it's going to balance out. So that they're about to your point, Leanne, is yes, it's like what we need to do right now to do it, but the future's then coming. So when it comes to balance out, I was actually, want to get away from business for a second, was, you're obviously in a pretty, very stressful on some days. Everyone has those days. What's the escapism mechanism for yourself outside of work hustle? Is it walks on the beach? Is it yoga? Is it going to disco raves, silent discos? Like what's the escapism metric? Or what's the vehicle for getting away from the chaos?
I'm not a big, I'm not a big believer in getting, in what's the work-life balance. I'm a big believer in work-life blend. I don't think when you're in most jobs in a senior position, you don't ever really switch off. There's always some,
Or business
at
owner,
some level,
yeah.
you're always thinking about work, but it's how you can actually compartmentalize that and be okay with it, just to get on with some fun. And I don't have any hobbies. Damn it. I need to find some hobbies so that this question
Reading,
next week can be
podcasts,
more.
audio. What do you,
But I think that's probably a
that
work-life
counts.
blend. Yeah, definitely. I love reading. So, and
There you
I'm still like old school books. And I have 3 bookshops in Auckland that I kind of rotate around. I'm on a mission to save all independent bookshops. And once you're in the community of bookshops, that you find like there's always something to read and great people to talk to. So I love doing that. Good books, always a good podcast. At the moment, I'm on a mission, being the new year, into sort of health and fitness and nutrition podcasts. I always had the best intentions starting out the year, and it's kind of wavers as I go on. Socializing, I love people. I have a great group of friends, so hanging out with them, most of them are industry friends, so we'll end up talking industry stuff again, but that's actually okay with me. We kind of, through doing that, I think we're all working towards a better industry and a better place to work. I absolutely, obviously my family, where we moved from South Africa to the UK to New Zealand. So we're a small, my mom was like one of 10. So I came from a massive family in South Africa. And here in New Zealand, we're a small family, but we're a really close group. We actually have some good laughs. So having family over is one of my downtimes and enjoyments. But yeah, those are probably it. I'm going to take up pottery this year, I reckon. I think it could be quite
There you
good.
go. No, it's always that balance of, maybe it's not escapism, it's that balance to be able to go do these things. And the bookshop thing's interesting, because anyone that you meet in a bookshop, they have yarns. Everyone's got a yarn in a bookshop.
Good.
So good. Like there are some yarns. And I love it. It's great. Well, I really appreciate you being able to come on, Leanne. I'm stoked to it's actually really good insights. Actually, it was cool. And I always like it's just sense checking the some of the thinking of what I feel is happening here, to know how it's actually bubbling up the top. And it's always good to get that validated and get more learnings too as well. So best of luck for the year ahead. I hope you absolutely smash it, and don't get in too much trouble at the bookshops, eh?
Ah, there's worse trouble to get into, Robett, I have to say.
That's true. That's true. I appreciate your time.
Have a good one. Thanks very
Love you.
much.
Thanks heaps.
Cheers. Bye.